Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host Louis Sung, and today we're going to be discussing everything that happened during the second day of OTAs. This was the first day that the media was actually able to watch and see what was going on. So we're actually getting some real football action here, folks. Granted, there are no pads, they're all in pajamas and wearing shorts, and it doesn't really matter, and the depth chart doesn't mean anything, and blah, 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 all those things. But you know what? It's still fun to talk about because now we finally get a chance to see what kind of plans, what kind of shape these guys are in. Are the likes of Chosen Anderson or Robbie Chosen? I don't. He's changed his name again, folks. I don't even know what to call him anymore. I'm just gonna say Chosen because whether it's his first name or his last name, he obviously wants to be called Chosen. So is he actually in shape? Is he good to go? What can Braxton Berrios do? Is Cedric Wilson sticking around? It looks like he might be. What can Devon Achane do? What is Raheem Mostert doing? What is Tua doing? Oh, that's the big one, Tua Tagovailoa. What's going on with the defense? All that stuff we're gonna be talking about. Just a few quick hits and my thoughts on everything that we saw based on what the media was reporting, and we're going to go into a little bit more in depth. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials to where you get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, spell that out, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com and get started winning today. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into some of the stuff that we got into at OTAs. So I'm going to go ahead and just read off of Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald, because when it comes to Dolphins news, usually you can't go wrong with Barry. Barry, while he does have some snark to him, at least he's very factual usually with what's actually going on. He doesn't embellish too much. He just goes into, this is what happened, this is what I think happened about it, and then he moves on. So one of the very first things that he talked about was actually regarding Andrew Van Ginkel, of all players. Now, ironically enough, just the other day, a good friend of mine, Jason Sarney, who currently is with Dolphins Wire USA Today, he actually made a tweet about Andrew Van Ginkel and talked about how he would be in the dream set of Vic Fangio's defense. Now, I know how Twitter is. He said a thing and then it was misconstrued in the sense that he was focusing on one thing, not the other thing, and it just all kind of went downhill from there for him. But nevertheless, his point was that he could see Andrew Van Ginkel getting an expanded role in the defense because of what Vic Fangio was planning with him. And it looks like that is very much going to be the case. So now here we finally get to see, according to Barry, that Andrew Van Ginkel is actually getting a shot to do some inside linebacker work. Now that in and of itself is very interesting, because what is the first thing you think of when you think of Andrew Van Ginkel? You don't think of an inside linebacker. You're not looking at a David Long clone. You're looking at somebody who is more like a pass rusher. You're looking at somebody who's going to be getting sacks. But here we now see that Vic Fangio is actually going to go ahead and he's putting him in the middle. So this is what Vic Van Ginkel actually said regarding learning his new position, or at least part of his new position. He said, and I quote, "I'm embracing the role and trying to learn different positions to give myself an opportunity to be on the field and be productive. It's a different game. I'm still learning the role and what it takes. It's a process, not something that's going to happen overnight." And he also mentioned this. It's always been kind of an option to be an inside linebacker. And he said again, quote, teams have always looked at me and asked, can he play inside or outside? I want to be able to learn both. It gives me an opportunity to play. So what that tells me right there is that Vic Fangio, because we had heard about this, right? We had heard this report that Vic Fangio had basically called up Andrew Van Ginkel personally and said, hey, come back to Miami. I have big plans for you. I want to be able to use you in ways that nobody has even perceived yet. And so we know the rest of the story. Andrew Van Ginkel re-signed with Miami. He went ahead and took a really, really team-friendly contract to do it, by the way. And now he's being used inside as a depth player, so he can probably be a backup to David Long Jr., or he can be a backup to Jerome Baker. He's basically learning how to be an all-around linebacker and not just be a pass rusher. Now, to be fair, he has done this before, back when he was in college in Wisconsin, but that was basically it. It was a very brief moment for Andrew Van Ginkel. He's been primarily used all this time in the NFL as a pass rusher and an ace special teams player. So for him to go inside now, it's very interesting, and I think that might be why we're not putting a little bit more emphasis on the linebacker position, because Vic Fangio wants to go ahead and use him in ways that they are not expecting. Because right now, what do you have at linebacker? Obviously, you do have David Long Jr., but he has been, injury prone a little bit here and there. And then you have Jerome Baker, who he's pretty solid, all things considered, as far as his durability. But he's been asked to do way too much in the past couple of seasons, and his play has dropped off as a result. And then your main backup is Duke Riley. Okay, well, to be fair to Duke Riley, he was wearing the orange jersey, which is the same indicator from last season that, hey, you were the superstar of last time's practice, so you're gonna get to wear the honor of the orange jersey. So kudos to Duke Riley on that. But I still don't look at Duke Riley as starter level player, right? I don't look at Duke Riley and say, you know what, if anything happens, don't worry. We got Duke Riley out there. He's going to be able to just seamlessly fit in the role that was left by David Long Jr. or Jerome Baker. I don't see Duke Riley like that, and I'm trying to be as fair to him as I possibly can, because I've seen Duke Riley play. He can play, but I don't want him playing the entire season. I'm sorry. He's not starter level material in my eyes. He's a very quality backup. He's somebody that I think can step up if needed in a short term, but if the rest of the season is hinging on Duke Riley playing linebacker, I am expecting teams to go ahead and just pick on him the entire time. So what does that leave with Andrew Van Ginkel? Now he's going to be learning a whole new position. I'm sure that they're eventually going to start using him as a pass rusher again, because why would you not put him at his specialty? But this plan to create more versatility than ever before is all part of the Vic Fangio scheme, I think. Just being able to make it so that in a way, it's going to be more of the amoeba defense, but not in the same way that we've seen it with Brian Flores. Because with the amoeba defense that we're used to, you just kind of had everybody bunched up together, and then they would go off on their assignments once the ball was snapped. It's a little bit unorthodox, very New England Patriot-like. But with Vic Fangio, it's more just along the lines of, okay, so this player is going to be lined up over here now, and we're just going to see if he's actually capable of being over here. I sincerely doubt that they're going to be putting things like, oh, well, let's just go ahead and have Bradley Chubb go out into coverage every other play. I don't think they're going to go that far. Or maybe push Christian Wilkins back into coverage. I don't think anything quite that drastic is going to be happening. But to create that kind of versatility, that's going to get Andrew Van Ginkel more snaps, and it may even get him paid next season, which may be why he decided to go ahead and come back to Miami on such a small deal. Because if anybody can get more out of him, it's probably the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, and I don't think it's close as to who else might be in that conversation. Even the national media are talking about Vic Fangio with that level of respect. And that's saying something, because as we all know, the national media is not a big fan of Miami, or even heck, the whole state of Florida as a whole. They just really don't want the Dolphins to do well. So for them to acknowledge Vic Fangio's greatness as a defensive coordinator, well, you can tell that the Miami Dolphins got something right there. So it'll be very interesting to see Andrew Van Ginkel's development on the inside rather than as a pass rusher. Okay, so let's go ahead into some of the next few notes that I saw that caught my eye. So one of the main things that he said that caught my attention, and this is regarding yesterday's show as well, where I went back and forth with my Pulse of Fins Nation co-host Ron Canaf, which, by the way, that will be airing tonight at 7:30 p.m. as always. Sometimes it's Tuesday, sometimes it's Wednesday, depending on whether the Miami Heat are playing that night, because I don't want to compete with them. I'm sorry, I don't think that's very good business sense. But nevertheless, one of the things that Barry mentioned was that the standouts, at least in his eyes, were two wide receivers, Braxton Berrios and Cedric Wilson Jr. Very interesting. The guys competing for the number 3 spot. And rookie running back Devon Achane. Okay, so let's talk about Devon Achane real quick. For those of you who didn't listen to the show yesterday, which, again, I still encourage you to go ahead and do that. It was a lot of fun. We had a great back and forth discussion about whether Dalvin Cook should even be pursued by the Dolphins at this point. But to Ron's credit, he was the one saying that the reason they don't need Dalvin Cook is because of just how special Devon Achane could potentially be. And at least based on the Underwear Olympics, as they love to call OTAs, Devon Achane was a major standout. So once again, we look at this situation and think, just how excited was Mike McDaniel to be able to get this guy? Because if he's already showing up above everybody else, that's saying something, because he has to learn the offense still. He hasn't gotten acclimated to what Mike McDaniel's scheme is as of yet, at least not on the field. Raheem Mostert already knows the offense. Jeff Wilson already knows the offense. So does Savon Ahmed. So does Myles Gaskin. So all of that stuff right there, and he's already showing up above everybody else. Granted, again, it's OTAs. There's nothing special going on here. They're not necessarily running plays, as it were. They're not implementing the offense yet. That's what training camp is going to be for. But already he's showing up above and beyond all the other running backs. I still believe I would want Dalvin Cook, if only because, again, I'm looking at this as a Super Bowl run. The Cameron Fleming dream, by the way, folks, died yesterday because he's going back to the Denver Broncos on a $4 million deal. So Isaiah Wynn and Cedric Ogbuehi and Austin Jackson it is. Speaking of Austin Jackson, so everybody was making a big deal about how in shape he looked this offseason. So, okay, great. I'm glad that he looks like a phenomenal athlete like he always has. But does this mean that he knows how to block now? That's what I really want to know. I want to know if this offensive line is going to be able to function with Austin Jackson starting at right tackle. Because at this point, folks, with Cameron Fleming now back to Denver, there's nobody out there, and I mean nobody, who I'm going to look at and say, you know what, this is an obvious upgrade. There's just nobody out there. This is it. This is who you have. You have Austin Jackson, Isaiah Wynn, Cedric Ogbuehi, and whoever else happens to be in that competition for the right tackle spot. I don't know who that's going to be yet. We'll probably get some kind of reports, maybe some illegal reports, because, again, reporters are not allowed to say who's competing where and who's where on the depth chart. So that's just Dolphins policy, and apparently it's not just the Dolphins. A lot of teams have that policy. I still disagree with it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Who cares what happens in training camp as far as depth chart is concerned? It's not like we're giving away the playbook to the other team, but I digress. I'm not going to argue about it. So Austin Jackson looks like he's in really good shape. He apparently had reconstructive surgery on his ankle, so we'll see if maybe that helps him out. Maybe that's what happened to him against the Texans. Maybe he was still really injured. He had to get himself healed up. Okay, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say, let's see what you can do. I'm not going to be necessarily hold my breath about it, but I'm going to hope and pray that maybe, just maybe, Austin Jackson came in here with the intent of showing that, you know what, he still has talent. I've said this before. He's 23 years old. He's still extremely young. Who knows? Maybe this is the year that he finally shows up and is able to play good for more than just 14 snaps in the first game of the NFL season. Another thing I wanted to point out here is regarding Eric Izukama. So where does Eric Izukama fit on this roster at this point? Because players are making plays all over the place. With the OTAs and everything, it's quarterbacks and wide receivers and running backs. This is basically all for them. This is just them to go ahead and get warmed up, get used to seeing each other run routes, what their timing is like, all that good stuff. So, of course, the defense is going to be at a disadvantage simply because there's no hitting, there's no anything like that. It's just run with the guy. It's 7-on-7. 7-on-7, the offense is designed to win. So, but Eric Izukama Apparently, he caught a 22-yard pass near the sideline from Tua, which is great. There were pictures showing that Mike McDaniel was actively talking to Eric Izukama in between plays. So it's obvious that Mike McDaniel is, at least to some degree, invested in Izukama. And we all know what he did in training camp last year. We all saw what he did in the preseason. That's why we liked him so much, and we kept clamoring for him to come out and play. But he kept getting ignored over the likes of Braylon Sanders. River Craycraft was in that group. Obviously, Trent Sherfield got the nod ahead of Eric Izukama. But Chris Grier had said outright that Eric Izukama was supposed to be a year 2 draft pick in a weird sort of way. He basically drafted into the future by picking up Izukama last season. But the problem here is that I don't see a spot for Izukama on this roster right now, because we've already been hearing, obviously, we don't even need to hear that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to be stars. By the way, Tyreek Hill apparently wasn't there, but I'm not even going to hold my breath on that. He's probably looking at OTAs and being like, I'm okay, thank you. And for Tyreek Hill, fine. I'll let him do what he wants. I'm not even going to get a little bit mad at him over that, because OTAs really are not that big of a deal. But obviously, he and Jalen Waddle are still wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. So now we're hearing, of course, Cedric Wilson is standing out as wide receiver 3. And I guess Braxton Berrios is standing out as wide receiver 3B. Okay, well, either way, that's still 3 and 4. You're not going to be able to, you can't give that as a roster spot. Oh, one guy is 3A and one guy is 3B. No, they still both count for a roster spot. And then, of course, Chosen Anderson, Robbie Anderson, however you want to put it, he's making plays. He's not sitting out there doing nothing. He's making some good moves. So, again, where does that leave Eric Izukama? Wide receiver 6? And if he's wide receiver 6, you're going to have a hard time getting him onto the field as is, which I guess that may not be a bad thing if you're Wes Welker and you're not 100% sure he's ready to play anyway. But there's just so much speed. There's so much talent at wide receiver right now. I don't see a whole lot of room for Eric Izukama. What he can do is continue to show that he has good ability. He can continue to show that he has good plays in him. The only thing that I would be worried about is that if he balls out for a second straight preseason, are other teams going to catch on and think that, you know what, maybe there's something here that we need to be keeping a close eye on. Let's go ahead and put in a claim for him. If they do that, because if he doesn't make the roster, obviously he has to go ahead and go through waivers before the Dolphins can stash him on the practice squad. And even then, if a team decides they want to put him on the active roster, then, okay, that's the end of that discussion. One last thing that I wanted to go ahead and bring up, although it doesn't mean a whole lot considering would-be sacks are irrelevant in OTAs. There's barely any blocking. There's no pads. There's no anything. Apparently, Barry Jackson pointed out that Jalen Phillips would have been one of the would-be sacks of the day, the others being Raekwon Davis, Mitchell Agood, I don't know, Mitchell Agood, all good, I don't know how you say his name, Aubrey Miller and Cameron Good. Okay, so, but Jalen Phillips is in that group, right? So Jalen Phillips continuing to be a really good player. He's able to beat guys. I'm really happy for him. We're going to really get to see what he can do, I think, in this defense because Vic Fangio, again, he just gets the best out of everybody around him. So that's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening. Those are the main things that I took away from Barry's article from the first day of public OTAs for the media. Those are the things that stand out to me more than anything else. Andrew Van Ginkel, increased versatility. Eric Izukama, he's apparently getting some one-on-one attention from the head coach. And Devon Achane continuing to stand out. That's really important stuff there. So we will see what happens in the next few days. Obviously, everybody's keeping an eye on the Miami Heat in the playoffs, so the Dolphins news is going to be a little bit slow. But as OTAs continue, we'll see who ends up standing out above the rest as everything continues. Now, if you haven't already done so and you need to get it done, go to U-Brake Wheel Fix. If you need to get your wheels fixed up, you don't need to replace them because they can get them looking like new all over again, or they can just give your ride a serious Dolphins look if you really want to show your fandom wherever you go. Reach out to Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at ubrakewheelfix.com. And, of course, go to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code 5. That's FIVE. If you are a fantasy sports fan, you definitely want to go to Prize Picks. If you deposit up to $100 using our promo code, they will match that amount, and you can go ahead and play through their 100 before you even have to touch your deposit. Again, the promo code 5, FIVE. Go start winning today. Once again, thank you all so much for listening. We will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.